Well, this is a case that shocked many people across the country when police here mistook a teenager who happens to have autism and thought that he was drunk. It happened 3 years ago in Mount Pearl and involved Dane Spurrell's son, Dane. He was 18 at the time. Two RNC officers picked him up, took him to the lockup. He spent the night in jail, and he was accused of being drunk in public. Dane Spurrell was appalled by the way her son was treated, as were many other people, and she made a formal complaint to the RNC. And Diane joins me now in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, some people would be surprised to hear that this is still before the Complaints Commission, especially since the police apologized shortly after this happened. Why is this still being heard?
The process began in 2010, the actual hearing.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, I asked for an investigation into the officer's conduct, and I was assured that it would be looked into, which it was. A few months after the incident, we received a document from the chief saying that his police acted in a professional manner. He believed what they said, that they didn't swear at my son,
Mm-hmm.
and that they acted in good faith, which was, in my opinion, very contrary to the apology that they had given to me. And for that reason, I went to the Public Complaints Commission with the results from the office of the chief.
Mm-hmm.
They did their own investigation, and it was decided that we were entitled to a public hearing.
Okay. Before we get into the details of this process, which seems to me to be taking an awfully long time, 3 years down the road, perhaps you could just remind people who are listening what happened to Dane when he was picked up by the police.
This still makes me emotional. He was walking home, and there was no sidewalk in one small area, so he stepped out around it, and a police officer pulled up next to him in a vehicle and asked him if he was okay, and he replied that he was fine. But she wanted to engage him in conversation and find out why he was out at this hour, and to instruct him that he was on the road and wearing dark clothes, and and that was fine.
Right.
That was fine. But at some point in time, she got frustrated with him because he wasn't
Answering questions the way she might expect him to.
Yeah. He's slow and he's deliberate, and what we perceive to be a simple question with a yes or no answer isn't always the way that he perceives a question.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes him some time to answer. Anyway, he ended up at the lockup. She passed my home to bring him to the lockup. She wouldn't let him call me. And I was at home going out of my mind, not knowing where he was.
Mm-hmm.
I actually put on my boots and coat in the dark by myself and went out looking for him, expecting to find him in a ditch somewhere face down. When I did phone 911, they called me back shortly after and told me that he had been placed under arrest for being drunk in public.
Mm-hmm. Did you, hey, look, this is my son, I've got to explain something to you, or did that?
No, because the person on the phone, to my estimation, had no authority or...
Right, and no direct involvement, really.
Right.
Now, after this incident, the police, as you mentioned, they did make a public apology. Then they met with you and Dane privately and also apologized. And I understand you received some kind of settlement. I don't want to ask you how much you received or how that worked, but what are you doing with that settlement?
That settlement is Dane's.
Yeah.
And he has, spent some of it, and there are investments made, and... we're looking after it.
But given the combined apologies plus the settlement, what's the persistence? How do you explain the persistence in pursuing the complaint?
Well, the apology to me was made null and void by the document that we received.
With the chief saying that his police officers acted professionally.
Yes. They're saying one thing in the open air, we'll say,
Mm-hmm.
talk is cheap. To come to me and soothe me by saying we're sorry, that was, I took it at face value and I accepted the apology. But then, months later when we received this document, it was such a slap in the face.
Would it be fair to say, Diane, that one of the reasons you're persisting with this, even 3 years, and I understand you're up against a whole whack of lawyers,
Yes.
that it has to do with, perceived hypocrisy? That on the one hand, they say you're sorry, and on the other hand, the police did nothing wrong.
They need to take responsibility. They need to take responsibility. The officers involved weren't even aware that we had received a settlement. So, that, things are being done on their behalf and for them without them even knowing about it.
How many lawyers are you dealing with in this? I mean, do you have a lawyer yourself?
No, I'm Dane's representative.
Okay, and when you go into these formal proceedings, what are you facing?
What I'm facing is 4 lawyers for the defense. A 5th lawyer who had been attending regularly stepped back. She had a limited role to play. She was there on behalf of the office of the chief. And of course, the chief was not called as a witness. So, on a daily basis, there are 5, when it's in session, right? We've had 4 sessions so far. So there are 4 lawyers for them, we'll say. 1 lawyer for the commission, who has to remain neutral, and me, and as well the other witnesses that came in from the lockup. Each had a lawyer with them.
What do you make of the sort of plethora of legal resources being used to grind this thing on 3 years later?
Everybody's entitled to counsel, okay? I don't begrudge them that. But when counsel is being used or using themselves, however, because I'm sure nobody makes them do anything, but when they abuse their knowledge to try and I guess they're just trying to run us out of time, to make us tired of it all and throw up our hands and say enough.
Doesn't sound to me like you're going to give up.
No, I'm not.
Just a couple of quick questions before I let you go, and I really appreciate you coming in. It was reported at the time the officers involved in what happened today would be taking some sort of training to educate them about autism. Did that ever happen, to your knowledge?
Yes. Yeah. That was actually in motion prior to this event in 2009. So the officers have been receiving training, existing officers and new cadets coming in, and that's a good thing.
Right. And any sense in your mind as to how long this is going to last? When is this going to end?
I pray that it'll be over on the date of December 12th. That's currently scheduled to be the final day. Right.
Coming up next month.
Yes.
Well, we'll certainly touch base with you again, and hopefully this will all be over, and you can just get on. How's Dane doing today?
Dane's pretty good. He's, he is interested in the process, and he wants to be vindicated in all of this. He didn't do anything wrong. He's been going around the community for years and never been assaulted or never been harassed by anybody until that morning.
Dane Spurrell, thank you so much for coming in.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
That's Dane Spurrell, the mother of Dane. Are you surprised as a listener this case is still going on 3 years later, facing a battalion of lawyers? The morning line number 576-5259, toll free 1-866-576-5259. You can send us an email, morningshow@stjohns.cbc.ca.